So this is my friend Shelley Gawith. She's obviously from New Zealand. We keep referencing, and I'm trying to make her an American, but now the borders are closed. So she can't even come over. It was so working.
It was. I was like, I'm there, and then no, I'm going nowhere.
Yeah. Except for that time we gave away all your supplements. That might have soured you on experience of America. And the time that I lent you my car and then someone almost sued me. Nothing ever came of it, by the way. Forget that.
One disaster after another. Maybe it's me and you. Maybe the common denominator is
oh my
you.
God. No. You just create miracles all the time. Okay, I'm being really goofy. So she's a practitioner, a functional health coach, similar to me in New Zealand. And well, yeah, let's catch up a bit. But I definitely want to tell your story, because your story, how you got into functional medicine and some of your experiences with mold and fatigue, I think will be really fascinating to our community. But yeah, what's the latest? How is New Zealand responding to COVID, and how annoying is it?
Well, I know, right? So, and this is quoted, so this is not my words, although I probably say the same thing, but I did see this quoted all around the world. New Zealand is one of the most extreme, has taken it the most extreme in terms of quarantine. So nationwide, so not just like in America, it's state by state, you guys have made your own decisions. Nationwide, admittedly, we're a lot smaller. We have locked down everything, which means literally your restaurants, there's no takeout food, there's no takeaway coffee, there's no schools, there's no going to your job like at all, unless you're considered an essential worker. So so if you can work from home, you keep working. If you can't work from home, then our unemployment rates have gone up 30%, like just huge numbers that we haven't seen before,
Wow.
even in the GFC. So it's extremely extreme. We can't travel like by car or by plane outside of our 5-kilometer radius from our houses. So you can go 5 kilometers to get your groceries as minimal as possible. And that's it. So and you're allowed your one bubble. So the bubble means the people in your house. And that is it. There's no like limit of 10 per people or anything like that. Like it's literally, we've been given bubbles, and that's it. So I live in an apartment block. So my bubble is just me and my unit. So I've got a dog, so I'm lucky, which means that I am allowed to go out walking, because I've got to walk her. Very convenient now. But other people, like if you kind of don't need to leave the house, you're encouraged not to leave the house at the moment. So it's been extreme, and we're now up into week 5 of this.
Oh my gosh. Wow. It seems like it just started, but I guess we planned this conversation quite a while ago. Yeah, I just think it's so dangerous for mental health to not even be able to take a walk.
Oh, it's so dangerous for mental health, and just isolation, being on your own. Like it's unheard of. Like I even found myself while I live on my own, I actually realized how social my life was. Like, yes, I can motivate myself to do my own exercise and I'm running my dog, but there's a reason I pay for a gym membership. It's the social connection. It's the waves with the people as you like wave at the reception. It's the talking like in the class, just saying hi to people. And like when you ask a lot of people why they even buy a coffee, quite often it's literally for the social connection, because they want to say hi to the barista. They want to just be regular contact. Like that's why there's so much loyalty to your local coffee shop, is because you want that human to human connection. So for a lot of us, we've lost that. And in good times, New Zealand's got very high domestic violence rates as it is. So we're seeing all of those numbers soar. We're seeing a lot of other implications because of this. And I'm not saying we've done the right thing or the wrong thing. I don't mean it like that. But regardless of judgment of what we've done, there are just other implications that we're seeing health-wise.
Yeah, it's funny, those little interactions you talk about, because I'm an introvert. I don't consider myself like super social, although I have friends and I like to work at coffee shops. But now I'm like a while ago, I went to buy dog food. We're allowed to buy that. And it's the same girl who always helps me. And I was just like so excited to see her. And I'm like, I did not appreciate, because you don't have a deep conversation with people. But I'm like, oh my God, I did not realize how much it meant just to like see the same girl every time I buy my dog food, or like go to the same Starbucks, even if I'm not like chatting it up with everybody. I just like chatting a little bit or just being around people. And so
And
now,
making the eye contact with people and just the general waves or whatever, just a smile, catching eye contact with people means a lot.
yeah, yeah. So I think we're all appreciating it. You know, here in my neighborhood, I think I've shared this, like people are waving. I saw somebody put like a gift for the mailman in the thing. Like another person put a sign on their trash can, like thank you for all you do. And nobody used to do this stuff before, but now we're having an awareness that we all depend on each other. And that is one really beautiful thing I think happening.
Oh, Bridget, that it is truly beautiful. And I think even like with my own health story and your health story, as soon as something's taken away from you, you appreciate it that much more. Like what used to be when I was working as an investment banker, a hassle going to the grocery store. As soon as I couldn't go anymore, that's all I wanted to do. That was the first thing. And I'll never, ever not be grateful to go to the grocery store ever again. And I'm sure now, post-COVID, everyone's going to be so grateful that you just walk in and out of the grocery store, like queuing for your groceries for an hour. That's not something that we even heard of doing 2 months ago. So I'm sure like post this, or like you say, all these little interactions, suddenly we're going to be like, wow, we are so incredibly lucky and we've got so much to be grateful for.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, and you think, gosh, we just, I can just figure out, you just take it for granted, like all the abundance we have, this full grocery store, everything we want, and then there's less in the store and all this stuff. And yeah, for a year I lived in South America in like a village, and we'd have to like take a bus to shop once a week, like in an open air market, and it was sweaty and all this stuff, and we didn't have like electricity, and we just didn't have a lot. I came home and I'm like, oh my God, like thank you for all these things I have, and so it does make you have gratitude. So that's one good thing. Yeah, I want to talk more about your approaches. I've been loving some of your Instagrams with your recipes and what you're cooking at home. I think that's so great. But yeah, let's back up a bit and say kind of how you got into functional medicine, which was the worst way possible, which was being really, really sick.
It was I look back and I'm like, it was the worst way possible, but it was also the greatest good because I'd ignored every other symptom in terms of until it was like I had no choice but to make a drastic change. And I think that's a lesson for a lot of us is we can just, the great thing about humans is we're hugely adaptable. So when my energy started to run dry when I was at the investment bank, so I was working ridiculously long hours, I was overtraining, I was training for all sorts of sports events and everything like that. I would just substitute, like when I felt tired in the morning, I'd have another coffee. If I felt tired mid-morning, have another coffee, have a gluten-free treat. So I had learned how to manipulate my energy levels so that I could, oh, thanks, Bridget.
Look at this while you talk.
I know. I'm like, wow, I look so good. That was when people could do your hair and I didn't have to do my own each day. And like, those were the good days. So I like your use of technology. So I used to just override every single symptom in my body, basically. And my whole goal in life was just to get the next career progression. Like I just wanted the next promotion. And I was very driven and I was very hardworking. And so while I was at the investment bank, I got Epstein-Barr virus. We call it glandular fever. What do you call it Epstein-Barr in America?
Well, just pronunciation Epstein-Barr is what.
Epstein-Barr. Okay. So I got that while I was at the investment bank, but I didn't care because I could just work from home on my laptop. So I worked the whole way through it. The problem, and I used to travel a lot for work as well, but the problem was as I got Epstein-Barr virus, I was living in a house filled with mold, which I didn't know. So I couldn't understand why when I travel, I'd feel better, even if I was away for a night. Then I'd come back home. I thought I was doing the right thing for actually resting. So in my lead up to my health, like my health crashing, like the perfect kind of health storm, I was tired from Epstein-Barr virus. I had an underactive thyroid that my functional doctor that I was seeing at the time knew about. I was being exposed to mold that I didn't know about. I had endometriosis, so the worst painful periods in the whole entire world. But I had a real high pain threshold, so I just pushed through it. So, and I also had really bad heavy metal toxicity.
Oh, wow.
But I could still go to work. So I really didn't care about any of those things. And when I talked to my doctor, and I was 26 at the time, And I remember saying to my doctor, I can no longer like barely cook dinner. Like I barely got the energy to do anything. But I said, but I still want to be able to do my marathons and I still want to be able to run. So she said to me, oh, let's just up your thyroid medication. And I was like, do you think like I should do anything with my diet at this point? Like, like would food really matter? Like, and so she was like, go to a dietitian. So I was like, sure. Like if money could buy something and it was going to be quick and easy, I was like, yeah, I'll go to a dietitian. I'll do exactly what she tells me to do. So she told me to go gluten-free, which I am so grateful for because that did help my period symptoms hugely. But I didn't get the education around actually still reading the labels or actually paying attention to the ingredients boxes. So now I was paying like 5 times the amount for my groceries, which was fine because I thought that like I was doing really well by my health. But I was buying a huge amount of processed products with a lot of sugar. So my gluten-free products, yes, they were gluten-free, so tick that box. But with a family history of diabetes and hypoglycemia, and I already needed to eat every single hour, otherwise I'd literally collapse because my blood sugars would run so low. I wasn't really off to a good start in terms of really getting my health back. So fast forward a year and I'm up to the maximum thyroid medication you can be on.
Wow.
And I'm 27. And I remember saying to my doctor, like, what am I going to do now? Like, I've got a whole life ahead of me. I'm already at the thyroid, like maximum. And she was like, don't worry about it. We'll deal with it when we need to deal with it. And I was kind of like, oh, well, like that kind of seems a little odd, but I can keep working. So I'm just going to.
What was your dosage?
I can't even, to be honest, Bridgit, like it feels like such a blur. And to be honest, I wasn't in the headspace where I really cared.
Right. You didn't really know what that even meant.
At this point, I wasn't doing anything for myself. I still just wanted to work in the investment bank. Like I'd literally leave meetings to get to my functional doctor, get back in the cab to get back to the office to get back. So I just remember going back to the office, my boss being like, what's up? And I was like, don't worry about it. I've got medication now. I'm good to go. I'll just keep working. So that was like my limited knowledge where I was just like, in the back of my mind, I was like, that's 27 is pretty young to be at maximum dosage. Like what happens when I want children? But I was like, oh, well, and I just got back into working long hours. And then I decided to go for a bigger promotion at another investment bank. So now the pressure was, I was now managing a big team and the pressure was really on. And within a few weeks of being at this new investment bank, I managed to catch full-blown influenza. So not a cough, not a runny nose, but the statistics that we see every year where influenza kills you, I got full-blown influenza. And once I've had full-blown influenza, I'll never complain or let a client complain about a cough being the flu. It is not. So that totally wiped me out. And I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't run. I couldn't cook for myself. I really lost all my energy. And so I went to the doctor and, she did the tests and she checked my chest and my lungs and everything else. And she confirmed that I had influenza and gave me time off work. But the fact that I couldn't go to work and didn't want to go to work probably lets you know how bad I was feeling. Like I literally could crawl to the toilet and that was it. Anyway, fast forward like 2 more months and I'm still not at work. I'm still not recovered. I'm still feeling really bad. And my health was deteriorating.
But the only thing you knew was that you had a low thyroid. That's the only thing you supposedly knew about. So
and I had now had clinical, like I was clinically diagnosed
the flu now.
Like it was fully confirmed, fully everything. And so I remember ringing my mom and I was like, back home in New Zealand because I was in Australia. And I was like, I'm so sick. Like, I just can't shake this. Like, I've been sick for 2 months. Like, I'm in this new job. I've got to go back to work. So I tried going back to work, which was just a total disaster to the point that my boss was like, look, you're a liability to this company. Because if you die on site, like you look so bad, we're going to be like seriously blamed. Do not come back to work until you're better. So that was kind of good. But in my head, I was like, but how am I going to get better? Like, it's been 2 months now. I'm resting. That's what you're meant to do when you get the flu. Like, you go to bed and apparently you just get better. You rest. Anyway, give it another month and I was still no better. So I was like, I'm going to do what I do. And that's run. Like, because like I can't crawl to the toilet at this point, right? But I was like, if I can like gain enough like strength, maybe I can just outrun this like sickness. Maybe
it's a great theory. Maybe it's something Trump would say. He's had some good theories lately on how to kill off corona.
Like, I was like, maybe it's in my mind. Like maybe I am just crazy and I've created the sickness now. Like maybe I'm just so used to being sick that I'm sick. So anyway, there was this beautiful park literally across the road from my house. So I didn't have to go very far. Well, sure enough, I like managed to shake it. Like I've got the wobbliest legs in the world. I get to the park. Like this is the power of mind and power of determination. And I was like, okay, like now you just run. So literally I was like set off like full sprint, like trying to run. And that just, my legs gave way and I was on the ground, like flat on my face because I had no strength. And one of the boys that I was living with at the time had watched all of this. And so luckily he knew what was going to happen. So he picks me up, takes me back to bed. So I'm back at the doctor. And now the doctor, by this stage, it's probably been 4 months or something. And she was like, look, you are so sick. There's nothing that we're doing that's helping you. Like you need to be hospitalized. Like we need to, like, you're probably going to die. Like at this point, she was like, they've run all the labs, they run all the conventional testing. They weren't seeing anything. And so she was like, you're just deteriorating so bad. You can't even cook for yourself. You're not eating. You can barely eat. Like your energy is just so bad. Let's hospitalize you. And I was like, yeah, I know, right? So I said to her, look, I'll get in a cab, I'll go back home and, I'll tell you tomorrow if you can hospitalize me. And I didn't know anything about diet. Like clearly, like I was eating gluten-free packaged crap. I was drinking too many coffees each day. I was still eating lots of sugar. So I knew nothing about it. And I rang my parents back home in New Zealand and I said, look, like I'm so sick. And my parents were kind of clueless. Like they kind of thought that I was at home sick, but didn't know the extreme of it. And I said, they want to hospitalize me. They think I'm going to die. And I said, but if I go to hospital, I will die. Like, I know that that food will be so bad for me, I will die. And so, which, like, coming from somebody that was already eating bad, like, come on. Like, but I just had this feeling, like, the sixth sense, and I think I would have been right. Anyway, my parents get on a plane straight away, and they come, and, like, my dad clears out my house basically. I'm on notice with work until I get better. I don't have to go back to the job. They've just seen how sick I am. The doctor's like really worried. And so I come back home to New Zealand, where my mum now becomes my full-time carer. And my younger sister's an ICU nurse. So she's used to seeing people that just don't, like, basically like dead in their beds. And so I start to work with the medical system in New Zealand, and being an investment banker, we throw money at these things. So I start to see the top specialists, mainstream specialists from around the world. But at this point, my cognitive functions also deteriorated. So I can no longer do maths. I can no longer string sentences together. I can no longer read full pages of books. Like I am sleeping like constantly. So every medical profession I see here, because now I'm in New Zealand, is telling me that I'm going to die, telling my parents that they should prepare, that there's nothing that they can really do. And it's just a waiting game until I just basically die in my bed. And my younger sister, being the ICU nurse, is also like, well, she is going to die in her bed because she's not moving her muscles. Like she's in so much pain. Like now everything's eating away at herself, at her, because nobody should live like this. But my dad would have to carry me to the bathroom. Like I could not even get myself there. I couldn't stand to shower. When I would shower, I'd have to sit there for like 5 minutes, and that was all I could do. So I just deteriorated even more if that was possible. And I'd literally sleep for 23 and a half hours a day. My parents would wake me to feed me, and that was it. So that went on for 14 months. Before eventually a doctor was like, maybe you should like try some bone broth or some fermented foods. Like, what have you got to lose? And so that was the first time that we were now actually looking into diet. So my mom started making bone broth and fermented foods, and she didn't even know what these things were. So this was all new. Like suddenly she was like full-time carer, giving up her life, now turning into this like homemade expert in terms of like doing all this cooking from scratch, hating her life because she hates being in the kitchen. Like she felt like she was in there all day long to help this sick daughter. And my dad was kind of like, gosh, I thought we'd gotten rid of her, and like, shouldn't she be in her prime, like getting married, having kids, and now she's back home and it's worse than like a baby, because at least babies are going to live. Like now
these babies are a little cute and you can hold them, take them places.
They just have to see me lying there in all this pain. And so this bone broth and fermented foods mean after my mom had implemented this for about 2 weeks, that I could stay awake for 2 hours a day, which is huge when you've only been awake for like 20 minutes and not really talking or making much sense. So at that point, we all saw as a family the power of food and the power of nutrition and what diet could really do for health. Like we were full-time believers at this point. So now my parents are eating bone broth and fermented foods. Like they're all in. my sisters come over to visit and they're like, this is disgusting. Like, why do my parents eat this stuff? But now they're all into because they're watching me get better. And so like, there must be something to this. And so fast forward after seeing all these clinical psychologists, cognitive experts, neuro experts, like everything to try and test my brain, I realized that nutrition was the key to this. And so I was like, food's got to make a difference. So I said to my parents, even though I could only stay awake for 2 hours and couldn't leave my bed, I'm going to study nutrition. I'm going to get myself better. Because by this time, and so they didn't tell me at the time, but they went to bed that night and they were like, she can't even stay awake properly. She can barely read a book. How does she think she's going to study nutrition? But they were like, whatever, she's thrown so much money at this. Like, what does it matter? Like, if this at least just makes her a little bit happy, who are we to take that off her? So that was where it all began. Literally, with any energy that I had, I started to read books about health and nutrition, and my mum would start to implement anything I learned. And then from there, I went to study. I found functional nutrition in America, actually, which was where I studied. And so then I started to learn, and then I started to learn functional lab testing. And so then I started to implement everything that I was learning. Like, I was only studying to get myself better. I had this thing where I was like, if I can help one person at the end of this will be awesome, but I'm going to go back to the investment banking world, but I will at least have good health. Like, that was what I thought was going to happen. And so that was my goal, was just to get myself better, maybe help my family if they can make a few tweaks, help one person, and then go back to investment banking. But, and so every functional test that I learned about, I would apply to my own body, my own health. I would test supplements on my own body, and I started to work out. I'd start to, everything that I'd apply, I'd get a little bit better. And so as I'd apply stuff, like, I just realized that I had to get to the very root cause, right? From the like roots up to what was wrong with me. So every single system, when I looked at it in terms of my study and my test, was just broken in my body. So it was literally rewiring, refixing, replenishing, giving the nutrients, getting out whatever was in there, like the parasites, the fungus, the mold, the heavy metals. Like, the list was so long. Every single system from the base up, I had to replenish, renourish, and restore.
That makes sense. Yeah. So what I want to ask you, because now you kind of specialize, as I mentioned in the beginning, on women who are overworked and burnt out. And there's kind of the part of the story you said, I like running on coffee and baked goods, which a lot of people are doing. But then there's this other part of your story where you really did, maybe not all at once, you got a lot of diagnoses about toxicity and chronic infections and stuff like that. So I'm just curious, when clients come to you, how often do they have all these other things, and do they know about it? They're like, oh, I thought she would just give me some like probiotics and send me on my way. Okay.
Bridgit, that's exactly it. You've hit the nail on the head. No, most of them don't know it. Nor did I. Like, to be honest, like, I just thought it was my thyroid. I thought I just took some medication. So a lot of people come to me because they've got a slight symptom. Like, they've got, well, I shouldn't say slight. They can be quite dramatic at times too, where it's hammering their quality of life. Like
they can't sleep, or they're tired, or they're gaining weight.
They're gaining weight. They're bloated. Energy is a big thing. They feel really stressed. They feel burnt out. They feel like they just can't get through life anymore. Like, they used to be able to manage their career and their children, and now they're just struggling. Or they've noticed that, like, a lot of people are constipated, or they've got loose stools. They get gut aches. Like, a lot of people are in pain. They can't get pregnant. They have really awful periods. So they'll often come to me with like one symptom or a small symptom, or they'll come with IBS. IBS is really common, and they've been diagnosed, or they just really feel tired. A lot of people are coming to me because they just feel tired. Yeah. Or they're carrying weight around that midriff area where they're just like, I just can't shift the weight anymore. Like, the diets that I've been on in the past, the exercise that I'm doing, it's just not working anymore. And like you say, also sleep. They just can't sleep, which was my story too. So they'll come with that. You're 100% right. But that's not their issue. Like,
then you give them the bait and switch, and you're like, actually, you have Epstein-Barr virus.
Yes.
You can't do that.
The amount of people that have, and a lot of them will come with chronic thrush or chronic UTIs, or they'll come with like craving lots of sugar, and they want to get rid of their sugar cravings. So you're 100%, and a lot of like sinus infections, sniveling noses.
Oh, yeah.
occasionally they'll know that they've been exposed to mold. Like occasionally I have a client ring me and they're like, I think I've been exposed to mold. I've heard your story. I've heard you speak with other functional doctors. Can you help me? So there'll be a few that are occasionally like that. But no, most of the time, and like heavy metals, no one's talking about heavy metals. Like none of my clients really. Like I have a foot cleanse, just to give you an example. In the clinic, we've got a whole detox center. And one day, like it was so bad. One of the staff that works in the detox center was like, this whole room smells like chlorine. Like it's just a foot cleanse. So it's coming out what's in her body. And
wow.
it was so
Becoming a
strong.
gaseous.
Yep.
Wow.
And so we could have that whole conversation with her about like, what is your history with swimming in chlorine water? Like, what are you using on your body? What are you using on your skin? Like, what is going on? Like, where does this come from? But she didn't come to me because she thought her weight gain was associated with chlorine.
No, why would you think that? Why would anyone think that? Yeah, that's what's so tricky about toxins and heavy metals and stuff is like they're invisible and nobody's hardly even talking about them. What was I was just on a webinar last night with Reed Davis, who functional diagnostic nutrition, and he was giving his whole list of things that are attributed to metabolic chaos. That's one of his terms. It is metabolic chaos. When I see that list, I'm like, toxin, chronic infection, toxin, a lot of it is. But why did it get into us is a different question that, you and I can answer, and you kind of explain with your own hyper drive and coffee and baked goods and all that stuff. So, we become a better host for all that.
100%. I was a great host for it, Bridget. I was prime breeding ground.
And you were young, right? You were how old when this happened?
I'm 26.
I mean, yeah.
And
right.
Bridget, what's really funny, you'll appreciate this. So I do obviously the functional labs that you do a lot of. So one of them is the GI panel. So I did that on myself, right? And like I'm talking about when I look at my list and I like go back now and laugh, I've got like a huge amount of parasites. I've got fungus, I've got yeast, I've got bad bacteria like you've never seen before. And so clients will always say to me, they're like, so is this the worst lab like you've ever seen? Like, because I don't know why they want to know if they're the worst, but that's a really common
that's a common question, yeah.
I'm always like, is this the worst? And in my head, like, I always have to bite my tongue because it's not.
Because you're the worst.
Yes! I've never seen any, like, I am waiting for the day. I've seen segments that might compare to mine, and it's not a competition, so I don't mean it like that at all. It's not something to even be proud of. But I like have to like withhold every ounce of control from my face to be like, no, this is not the worst. This is, and sometimes I'm like, it's not even bad. Like I've seen 10 more this week that were way worse than this, if you know what I mean. But
yeah.
The day that I see somebody's as bad as mine is the day that I'm gonna like, woo, woo, woo.
You're gonna start a club.
Yeah. So literally I was a prime host. I did everything right for breeding them.
I'm actually really glad I asked you this question because I've known you for a while and I've known your niche, so to speak, but now I kind of get it. Like you are speaking to that overworked woman who's starting to have some symptoms, but you're in the end giving them functional medicine, which maybe they don't even know they're going to be getting, which is
no, they don't know it.
I love it. It's brilliant. Yeah, my community is very different. They already know they've got stuff or they suspected, they've been studying a long time. So it's just a little bit different.
Oh no, mine hasn't been studying at all, and they don't even have the time to study it. They don't want to study it.
They have kids and this. They just like, help me. I can't function.
And by the end of the process, I always say you're going to be educated, you're going to be empowered, and you're going to know exactly what's happened. But quite often at the beginning of the process, they are literally just trusting me and seeing results, so they stick with it. If you ask them why they're coming to the clinic, like when my staff ask them, they'll be like, because Shelley, like I'm seeing results and Shelley tells me what to do. Like, and I'm like, no, people, it's you're going to get educated, you're going to get empowered. It's not just because your practitioners tell
Mine's the opposite. They're like, don't tell me what to do. I already read 25 books on it. No, just kidding. I love my community. But like, they're just different. They're super educated. Already.
Mine is super not educated. So for a client, like you say, to come in a little bit tired or drinking too much coffee, And to walk out the door realizing that they've got yeast, that they've got lack of digestion, like they need hydrochloric acid in their stomach, that they've got heavy metals, they're just like, what the heck, what just hit me? So it's a real education process.
Yeah.
And
Well,
functional
good for
nutrition
you.
in New Zealand is unheard of anyway. Like
Oh, wow.
I'm one of the very first practitioners
Wow.
studying in the States doing this. So it's very different. It's a different, like you say, totally different world in terms of what we're dealing with, but we get the same outcomes.
Yeah, and another comment I get sometimes, not with everyone, is like, well, kind of like, well, why me? Like, why is everyone else functioning normally? And I'm like, have these, and I'm like, I don't think everyone else is doing so good either. They just haven't run any of these tests. They're still living on the coffee and the muffins.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, because I get that question so often. Like, people would be like, but why do I have to work so hard with my diet? Why am I doing all of this and I'm not getting the results? And Betty down the road, she's fine. And it's like, well, we don't actually know what's going on with Betty down the road or the best friend that they're talking to. We don't know what symptoms that they're actually covering up, because when I was 26, I looked amazing in terms of, if you were looking at me on the outside, if you were looking,
most people do when they're 26.
Yeah, but the thing is, Bridgit, what I'm trying to say though is, even though I like looked like the perfect weight, even though I could run marathons, even though I was successful in my career, I was so sick on the inside.
Yeah, you're like, what is it? Time bomb.
I looked healthy as a 26-year-old, like you say, most 26-year-olds do. But literally, I was dying on the inside, like literally, like it was just a matter of time, as happened, bit by bit, system by system. And so Betty down the road, or whoever was judging me, didn't actually know what was happening internally. They didn't actually know that, yes, I looked like I could go to all these meetings, and yes, I looked like I was doing so well, but I was fueling myself with those coffees. Like, I couldn't, like, my assistant knew if she didn't bring me a coffee to the meeting, I would fade. Like, she had to do it. My boss knew that if we had overtime, I would collapse from hypoglycemia. Like, I would faint. So on the outside, yes, I looked super successful, but I was using all these external triggers, all of these things to get me through.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's so true.
I was using things that my colleagues didn't realize, or didn't. It looked normal because it looks okay. Like having a coffee, that seems fine. She's not really doing anything bad. And she's so on trend. Back 7 years ago when gluten-free was super on trend anyway, I seemed super healthy because I'm like, wow, I eat my gluten-free treats. Like, I'm so healthy. So people would judge me and be like, well, she goes to the gym, she runs, she does all those sporting things, she has her coffee and she has her gluten-free treats. She's good.
Yeah.
And really, I wasn't.
Yeah. And I think that's a bit how I was like when I got sicker too. I was doing some things right. And then I actually started to do more and more things right. I was starting to eat a lot more real food, cooking all in food, making bone broth. I was really doing it, but I also lived in a moldy house. And that's going to catch up with you. And it's interesting. I never knew that you got the flu. You know, for me, my sort of tipping point experience was getting strep throat. And I just did not come back from that. And I hadn't had something like strep throat in 20 years. I had never taken antibiotics in 20 years. So, you know, I think, again, we can become, just like we see with this COVID right now, like we can become a good host for something that's viral or bacterial or whatever, that's really like gonna push us over the edge and show you sort of how weak you are, so to speak.
100%. And the other thing, Bridgit, is like, now that I've done my family's labs and now that I look back, like my parents and my grandparents have toxic heavy metals too. So I would have been born with like toxic heavy metals,
okay, right? Good to know.
And I even had like a half, even though my eyebrows aren't like, they're quite full for my standards, but from a very young age, I was known at school as the half eyebrow girl.
Oh.
So I thought it was mean, but it's kind of what that's reflective of from a very young age. Well, I can't prove it. I probably had an underactive thyroid if I wasn't even born with it. I don't know, because I can't.
Interesting.
Immediately say that. But the thing here is, if that's your normal, that's your normal. So I was so used to like whatever my energy levels were, which I thought were good because that's all I knew, I didn't know any better. Right. So that's the other thing, is we might have been a host from a very young age, And so until like a lot of clients will say to me, I thought my energy was good because they're driven, like they're successful. They're often the type A personality. So they think that they've got energy, and they'll often say to me at the end of like when they're feeling amazing, they're like, I wish I'd known this years earlier. Same for me. Like I could get through life and I was achieving by other people's standards, but it was a push. Life was hard in my mind. Like, and so now I look and I'm like, it's so much easier because I'm in such good health. Now I know what good energy is. And Bridgit, you know this, when I got re-exposed to mold 18 months ago, the reason I knew it was because I knew what such good energy was, that as soon as I woke up slightly tired and I was a little bit inflamed with my weight, I knew to go digging, and I wasn't going to put up with that. I wasn't going to stop until I got to the root cause of what had set me off. But that is literally, but when I was exposed to mold the first time, my level of health was so average, I didn't even know that it was average, that those things, I just didn't even recognize them.
Yeah. I just want to say, I know we're kind of like just talking over here, but I think it's a really interesting conversation. If you want to say anything in the chat, you're welcome to just to comment. You know, I missed a couple of you were saying that they had a similar experience. We do have some people watching on Facebook. We have some, I put it live in our mold group too. So yeah, if you have any questions for Shelley, she's really like has a broad range of knowledge on heavy metals and molds and all these things. So I know I kind of, well, actually, let's take a quick pause and go look at your site again, because I saw a couple gifts and stuff, and I want you to say,
Also,
like,
do you get the Q&As at the bottom of your screen?
Yes. So, Anna, and you're welcome to share this in the chat if you're comfortable, but Anna is kind of sharing that her story is a little similar to yours. Like, she kept working full time. Her dad was a doctor, and he thought it was just stress. So, yeah, I think a lot of us who have sort of chronic illness, like we didn't know for a long time, right?
Totally. And that's why, like, that's what motivates me the most is I'm like, I just wish that I'd known earlier. Like, I'm grateful for the life and what I get to do now, but I wish that I didn't have to have gone through that. Like, if I could have woken up earlier and been made aware of like some of these symptoms, that would have been the best like thing in the whole entire world.
Okay, so you have a quiz here of some kind. If you want to talk about that.
The reason I started the quiz was you don't know you've got a symptom unless you're made aware of it. Like most people don't know. Like I didn't know that like almost collapsing and fainting every single month from my period wasn't normal because I didn't really talk about that with anyone. And I grew up watching Sex and the City with Sarah Jessica Parker, where you went to bed every time you got your period each month and ate ice cream. So I was like, that's normal. It's sugar and just suck it up and keep going on with it. Does that make sense? So like clients will always say to me, the best thing about your website is when we do the quiz, we're made aware, like, why did you ask me that question? Like, what does that mean? And some of it's just we need awareness. And so if you don't have awareness, you don't know.
Oh, look how cute this is. I like it. Yeah, it's true. And like, I think even in my journey, I'll just share a little tidbit. Like I have had for so long, like kind of low blood pressure, low blood sugar in the afternoon that gives me like a kind of a headache and I'm kind of out of it, that it's like, I really let it become my normal. And lately, especially when I'm home and I'm really seeing myself, you know, because I'm home all the time, I'm like, oh, that's not, no, I should not be. So I'm experimenting with salts and like, you know, stuff like that. Like, cause you know, I haven't quite like some days better than others. I haven't quite dialed it in yet, but I'm like, I can't keep ignoring that symptom. Something is still going on for me that makes that symptom.
The thing is, like, the amount of people, like, I had a male client, and he hasn't been able to sleep for years. So he worked out a strategy where he like overate everything before bed or whatever. Like he had this whole strategy that he could do. And that's the thing, because we're so adaptable, we come up with strategies rather than going, but why? Like, what is my body actually trying to do?
Right. You know, yeah, I'll tell another example of my father-in-law, which is, and you know, hindsight's 2020, but he got heartburn, and so he's like, oh, I don't really eat until like 3 p.m. and then I like and I was like, he's like, that's just what I need for my body. I like kind of like I know my body, and I was like, and then he turned out to have stage 3 pancreatic cancer. So
That's the thing.
not easy to come back from that one. Because so we normalize, we all do it. We normalize our symptoms, and you're like, oh, I'm just one of those people who, and not to say we should drink alcohol, we shouldn't, but you and I know with mold, like it got to be like, I couldn't have like half a beer without vomiting. Like that's not normal. That's not normal. So if you're that sensitive to something, your body's trying to tell you something, and it's worth it to slow down and look at it. And I think that's what you're giving your clients an opportunity to do, because they're so busy, but something's getting in their way of functioning, and you say like, hey, let's slow down and see what your body.
And you know what? No one ever regrets spending time on their health and investing in their health. If you know what I mean? Like even when I was searching pre everything collapsing in my body, when I went to see the dietitian, like I was searching. And I don't think anybody, when they see you, Bridgit, or they see me, is like, well, that was a waste of money. Like everyone gets better health. So everyone's seeing benefits. That's the great thing about what we do, is we get to give benefits. Like you get a better life for doing it, whatever that looks like for you.
Yeah. And another thing that reminds me of is like, as I became a functional coach, I don't know about you, but I was a little intimidated. I was like, people have been to the Mayo Clinic, people had been to, Chris Kresser, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, how am I? But anyone you see, I really encourage this, anyone you see pretty much is going to add something to your journey. So I don't worry now anymore, like, am I going to have nothing to say? We all have our own training. We all have something to add to the conversation. And not saying you should constantly hop practitioner, but I actually am a fan of getting different opinions, doing different modalities, because you never know, you did that foot bath for that person with the chlorine. What if she had never tried that?
Exactly.
So you got to try stuff.
It's so true. And I think also why people like working with us, me and you, is we're always trying things. We're still growing. Like I still want my health to be even better. Like if it's this good, don't I want it to be even better at the moment? Oh, what? Oh, good to see.
That's your food thing, and I don't think it's working.
It's definitely not
okay.
working.
We won't share that one. I'm probably confusing people with like giving too many things.
Everyone seems to be clicking on right about now, and I'm like, thanks, Bridgit. I'll be going on to IT straight after this one. You've really showed up a problem.
They can just do the quiz for now.
Yeah, like the cool thing about that Power Foods courses, just to talk about it, is that like, because everyone thinks that when something is wrong for them or causing them a symptom, that it's going to be wrong for everybody. The whole thing is you want to work out for you. Like I've got some clients that can't have coffee. I've got other clients that can't have black tea. I've got some clients tomatoes aren't right, or chocolate or cacao or dairy. There is no one thing. If there was one thing for all of us, we'd all be in amazing health. We could all just take that textbook and off we go. But why isn't the whole world in amazing health? If you know what I mean? Like literally, if it was as simple as, here's your 3 foods that are causing you inflammation, off you go. Like eggs were a major trigger for me when I was super sick, but eggs can be fine for a whole bunch of other people. Right. So it's individualized, and we hear about this with the Chris Kressers and the Josh Axes, and we all hear it and it can be like, yeah, okay, whatever. But it's actually the truth. Like you don't want to take out foods like your green veggies and all your nourishing good food. You want to get all your nutrition from your diet as much as possible. So you don't want to be eliminating whole food groups that aren't even causing you inflammation.
Yeah. And it is so individual. I remember many years back when I was having IBS and didn't really kind of even understand what that was. I still was kind of eating everything under the sun. And I just thought, well, something's upsetting my digestion, but I have no idea what it is, because I was eating the same kind of trigger foods day after day. So people can get a little overwhelmed about like what to take out or what to mess with, but there really frankly are a top handful of top triggers. And you do notice when you take out cheese or you take out egg or whatever, you start to notice some things. And it may not be direct. Like I've had clients like, well, I gave up gluten for 2 or 3 weeks and then I had it again and it felt fine. And I'm like, it's not quite long enough for you to really tell. Like now I can I'm a lot more sensitive, right? I'm a lot more, if I feel off now, I'm like, oh, that's because I had corn chips. Those don't go well for me. And like, it's clear to me now. And frankly, luckily I have, probably like you, so many supplements, like I know exactly what to take too. I'm like, oh, corn chips going down. Okay, I know what to take for that. So it's like, you can even get to the point where you really can monitor all
You
these
can
little
play a game
things.
with it. You can gamify it as well, 100%. Once you know, and some of my clients that are gonna get in the know, they know how to gamify these things. They're like, I'll take that supplement and then I can eat that food anyway.
And not to say like we're just going off the rails, but there's going to be times where like you're at a pub or something and you're like, I'm going to have nachos. Like I would have nachos like one every 3 months. It's not going to be very often. But if I do, it might go okay or it might not. So then I know what to take if I'm not feeling good.
And also, Bridgit, that's what I say to clients. Like, once you get educated and empowered about your body, you just make informed decisions. Like, the difference between 10 years ago and you is you might have had the nachos every single night, not even realizing that they're affecting your body. So then you're causing inflammation. Now you have them occasionally, you enjoy it when you have them, and maybe you take a supplement to stop the impact or the inflammation on your body. So now you're actually making an informed decision, or you choose to never have that food again, which is once again your choice.
It's your choice. Yeah, that's important too. So people get very emotional. Or you're saying I can never have nachos again or never have ice cream. You can do whatever you want. But I generally recommend you don't do it for a little while. See how you feel. Yeah. And then you can start trying stuff again. It has to be long enough, to see how you feel.
Often food is the canary in the coal mine in terms of we eat, and so we recognize that we've got a symptom from food. But often, as we both know with working with our clients, what is actually going on in their digestive system? What is going on with their gut health? Like, why is that food triggering them? Like, it's often there's something out of balance. So it's like, if you can't, so then it's like, okay, eat the food, but what else is happening? Have you healed your gut? Have you healed your hydrochloric acid in your stomach? Have you healed the mold? Like, like peanut butter feeds mold, it's moldy. So it's like, those types of things where like once I got exposed to mold again 18 months ago, I was suddenly craving peanut butter. I don't even like peanut butter. So I was going through like a jar a night. Like it was ridiculous. I don't even eat like that. But as soon as I got home, I just wanted peanut butter.
Oh no.
I was like, this is odd. Like this is so it's like, okay, but the food was the canary in the coal mine. It really did help me realize that while I couldn't see mold in my apartment, there must be mold. So the food or whatever, like with you, it's always just talking to us. And until we've healed whatever the root cause is underneath it, like now I'm back to not eating peanut butter again. Like that few months of my life is out the door because I don't even like peanut butter. So it was very much like, okay, what is this telling me about my body? What is out of balance? Is there anything to be worried about? Or is it just literally like I eat these corn chips every 3 months and I'm good with my life?
Right. My dad, I don't know if my mom's on here. She often is, but my mom's on. I'm going to tell a story about my dad. I don't usually do, but he sneezes like after every meal. Sneeze, like for 3 minutes sneezing. And I think I said to him once, I'm like, that's something you ate. And he's not interested really, probably. Just not interested in all this, but that's just like a histamine reaction, right? He kind of eats bread or whatever. And so then he gets to sneezing. I'm busting him on live webinar with my mom. But that's just, like another thing, like, or for me, I'll sometimes feel really tired after eating. And like for me, like especially at lunch, like any kind of carb can really like crash me. So it's kind of telling me something about my insulin and like, is blood sugar actually getting into my cells or what's really happening here for me that I get so tired from a lunch. So it's when I'm still kind of like unraveling, to be honest.
Like gas, wind, bloating, like those
are real common.
They'll be like, I experienced this. And I'm like, well, what is your body telling you? If you know what I mean, like that is not normal. You should eat your lunch or your breakfast or whatever it is, feel nourished, have good energy and continue on with your day. Any other symptom is your body telling you something's out of balance.
Yeah. Well, I said we were going to talk about COVID, but this turned into like a really nice sales call for functional medicine. Really is kind of what we're talking about here. Because it's true.
We can shift it around to coronavirus
We
too.
can do a little bit now in the end, but I like you at 8 a.m. You got some excitement, and I was getting excited with you about uncovering these root causes, and yeah, like not taking it for granted that you're tired or you're bloated or you can't lose weight, and which I know my audience is definitely into. But this is a great reminder, and I think you want to share this with people who are like newer to my community, or maybe people here will share with friends, because it's like it's really. I think there's just still so many people out there who are like, oh, I'm bloated after meals, but that's normal. Like, I need 3 glasses of wine to fall asleep. That's normal. I maybe I should call it the normalization of symptoms and what they really mean.
Almost the worst thing is that people don't have these conversations because everything's being normalized. Like when I go and I get to talk to huge corporate clients, I might be talking to 500 people at once, and I'll ask them about a symptom that they might experience after eating. Most hands in the room have gone up. Yeah. And so what is that saying? They're like, but it's normal. It's normal to get bloated after eating. And so if your normal is that in the lunchroom, if that is your normal with everyone else in your world, well, you do just think it's normal. Because nobody's speaking out and going, hey, no, that's not normal. No, you don't want to feel like that. No, you don't want to experience those symptoms. So that's part of it too, where if that's your normal, and so a lot of people just don't know that that's not normal. I didn't know that not needing to eat every single hour wasn't normal because I've done it for so many years.
I was very much that way too. Yeah. My blood sugar was really off. I was going to say too, and we're not just saying like take everything out of your diet. That's not a permanent thing. We're just based on the health of your gut and your body. You could become like, a lot of people sensitive to almonds and nuts. You probably see that. Like you can become sensitive to healthy things because of the state of your gut and your immune system and stuff. So we're not saying just give everything up, but we are saying investigate.
Yeah, 100%. And definitely don't give everything up because you need to get nutrition from your diet. Yeah.
Speaking of nutrition, you just did a good segue for me. I don't know if you saw Jessica Drummond and a couple other people posted on Facebook an article about nutrition and COVID. Did you see that?
No.
Maybe I can share it. Oh, you didn't see it. Maybe I can share it. I'll just talk while I'm finding it. But something that she pulled out of the article was, I got to read this, but only 12% of Americans do not have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, pre-diabetes, or diabetes.
88% of Americans have those conditions.
Yeah. Which I don't know is entirely, I got to go back it up. But I think right now people who are getting very sick with COVID, at least 25% of them have some of those inflammatory conditions. Obesity is another one of them. And then there's younger people. Someone was just telling me about a 23-year-old on the ventilators in her hospital. It made me think of your story a little bit. Okay, you say they're 23, but vitamin D. I also saw a great article on recently. Melatonin levels. Like if these levels are real low for you, you are a better host for that COVID. And I don't want to say it's just people who are sick are getting COVID, but it's just all these underlying factors too. Like you want to have robust immunity, and what comprises that? It's good nutrition, adequate vitamin D, good digestion. Are you actually absorbing stuff? Are you keeping down inflammation? And I know when COVID came around, I was a little nervous because I was just in this point in Arizona where it was, we get early spring. And so I was still kind of dealing with wintertime EBV flaring up a bit, and then like springtime asthma, thanks to like that kind of getting irritated with mold. And I was like, I'm not feeling too good about this COVID coming to town. But I did some tweaks and like I'm doing a lot better now. So it was a reminder for me. I'm sure you kind of have to be careful too. Like if you've had chronic conditions, it's time to tone it up a little bit. That's kind of my opinion. What are your thoughts?
Bridgit, I totally agree with you. And I'm not saying that coronavirus isn't nasty. I'm not saying as is pneumonia, as is influenza every single year, like that absolutely awful. But it's a good opportunity to be like, but would I be a host? How could I be how can I make sure that I'm not the perfect host to host this virus or to host this condition? And like you say, like me and myself and my family and a lot of my clients, every single year there's just blood tests that we do every single year to check in with our markers, because I always want to be ahead of chronic health. Like I want to make sure that none of my markers are slipping, so that straight away I can see whether I'm trending downwards or I'm trending towards better health. Because the reality is, and not in a fearful way, whether it's coronavirus or cancer, if we're creating an environment that is going to host these things, we are just a ticking time bomb. So it's like we can actually feel really empowered and motivated, because we can make ourselves such an amazing, like our health, we can just take it to the next level. We can make sure that we are not going to host any virus or anything, whatever it may be, whether it's whatever it is, but just make sure that we double down on our health and get totally empowered at the moment and learn about our bodies, learn about our nutrition, learn about some functional tests like vitamin D, iron, vitamin C levels, like all of these things or why we're inflamed, what is happening with inflammation in our body, what is happening with our digestive system, like all of these things. If we've got a symptom, we can start to go, hey, why have I got this symptom? What is out of balance in my body? And get really empowered by it rather than really upset by it.
Right. Like, how can I kind of, take back my power here? So here's
Totally take power. And I know for me personally, I just want to die in my sleep one night of old age.
Yeah.
I want to know that all my markers, like I'm going to keep doing this. This is for the rest of my life. Like clients often say to me, they're like, okay, so like you're good with your health now. And it's like, yeah, I have great health day to day, but I'm not going to let that up. Like I want to always be checking that I've still got good vitamin D. Have I traveled too much during the New Zealand summer so I'm not being exposed to sunshine? Like, what is it that I need to be like? We always want to not take our health for granted, because it is a gift and it is something that we need to be aware of and continually be looking after ourselves with what goes into our mouths, what goes into our bodies, what goes into us via the light sources, like the environment, like stress levels, all of these things, mindset, emotional health. These are all key components to having really good health.
Yeah.
And in time, this is when, like, for me, I'm like, well, I'm doubling down. I'm going to every single practitioner at the moment to make sure that, like, my health is amazing, because I don't want to be a host for this at all. And if I can do anything proactively, yes, it doesn't mean that I could still get it. I'm not saying that at all, but I want to know that I've been totally proactive in my health.
Yeah, let me share my screen one more time. This is the vitamin D article.
Yeah, I loved that vitamin D.
Oh, you saw that one? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, and I covered a lot of this in my immunity ebook that I recently put out. I didn't, quote any studies on nutrition, because I think we all know about good nutrition, but I did talk, I did quote studies about vitamin D, and this one is more specific to SARS-CoV-19, and I think I didn't read it all yet. I just kind of read her excerpts, but I will share this PDF in the chat here.
And vitamin D is just a common lab that you can run every single year and just check what's happening. Because I know in New Zealand, the statistics are we are low in vitamin D. So many people are low in it. And it is
low.
For good health, good energy, good hormones, good immune system. Like there's so many functions for it.
Yeah, I just had it finished with a client who's here in Phoenix, and she was well under the normal. We have plenty of sun, but she said, "Oh, I'm really into sunscreen," which I kind of get here. It does really damage your skin, but she's either going to need to supplement or get out more, because these are simple things we can do, and just kind of reminding everyone, because luckily we're kind of starting to flatten the curve here, but also we've had some mutual friends like end up in the hospital, and like I'm seeing more of these cases kind of, I don't know, hitting closer to home, so to speak. I mean, I still definitely don't want to get it, just in case.
Like I'm doing everything to not get it in terms of social distancing, not going out. Obviously New Zealand's on extreme lockdown anyway, but we're being proactive with it. But then we're doing that side of things, but we're also, while we're inside, looking after our own health as well. Because I'm with you, Bridgit. I don't want it. I don't want to risk it. I don't need it. You don't need to play with fire.
Right, exactly. Let me just put up my link for my little immunity ebook I finished a couple weeks ago, because it kind of puts everything in one place. I think too, Shelley, like, we're finding out so much new stuff about it all the time. Like now we're finding out, oh, it removes the hemi from your cells, and like that's why you're so tired. And then like a friend of mine thought she had like the COVID rash, and I was like, I didn't even know it could do that. And
rash.
what's that?
I didn't know there was a COVID
There is.
rash.
I was like, what? And then I Googled it, and there's like a ton of articles on the COVID rash. Yeah. And our friend Elisa Song put that in one of her posts recently too.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So you can get a rash. It maybe not be it'll be like in the later stages of it. So it's just, it is a tricky one. I don't want to minimize it at all to say like, oh, we've got it all figured out. Because I think there's a lot of brilliant people still trying to figure out what is going on.
I agree. We definitely don't have it all figured out.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I really appreciate our early morning conversation. It was really fun. And I think we kind of drove home the importance of doing this kind of work. You work with people not just in New Zealand, but anywhere, right?
Well, especially now, very much so.
Yeah.
I always it was so funny because I always did see clients from around the world. And then a lot of my local clients were like, what do you mean? How will we work with you online? And I'm like, well, I've been doing it since I first started. And they're like, oh, and I've had so many clients now, Bridgit, it's so funny that some of them have to drive to see me, like maybe an hour or an hour and a half. And they're like, so why didn't you tell us earlier? Like, you could have saved us the drive. And they're like so grateful now. They're like, oh no, we're not going back to seeing you in your office. And I'm like, but I like seeing people in my office. So it's really interesting how business just changes and how people have adapted and people actually really like it. I have to admit, like I had to sign some legal documents last week and I was super grateful that I could do it from my own home. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy that I don't have to drive across town and do all of this. So It's like, so there's real huge benefits that we're seeing where people are like, oh, this is fantastic.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. I mean, there's both sides, right? We do need to see people and make eye contact and touch people. But also I've been working exclusively at home for 2.5 years now. And like my accountants are well across town. And I'm like, I'm not coming in. And I think I'm one of the only ones who's like, nope, we can do it on this phone. Because it's like, I have to work and it's going to eat up half my day to drive up there, shoot the shit with you, then have our meeting, and then drive home. And like, it's just every now and then that's nice, but it's just, it doesn't need to happen that we go somewhere all the time. And I love working online. And I think it is kind of a mental adjustment when you used to be going into the clinic, but there's so much we can do. We can't, our whole business functions online. We send you the lab test, only thing we can't do is draw blood. And that someone could come to your house for that actually. But that was one thing that kind of threw us off last month because we were offering a blood lab test. And I'm like, I don't blame you if you don't want to go in for that right now.
It's true. I believe you. It's true.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Shelley. I appreciate your time. And I've kind of shared some of the links in the notes here, and we'll get these all up on YouTube later as well.
Thank you so much, Bridgit, for having me.
Yeah, and thanks for everyone who is live. We appreciate it. Bye, everybody.